if you guys want to see me into the UFC and you want to see me make some noise in the top 15 guys right away, someone like a Dan Ige, someone like anyone in the top 10, like I'm down to fight them and if you want to see that too, come support, give some love and give a shout out to the UFC and let them know.
From MMA Island. Christopher de Santiago of MMA Island. Today I'm joined by a former Bellator and RIZIN champion and Juan the Spaniard Archuleta ahead of his next fight at XFC 53 on September 20th. Juan, how's it going today, man?
What's up, Chris? I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on, man.
Of course, man. Of course, it's always good to be talking to you. I believe this is going to be close to your 40th fight. Are you still enjoying the journey at this point of your career?
Yeah, definitely. This is gonna be, let's see, I'm 30-7 right now, so my 38th fight. Yeah. And just revitalized, feeling good. Basically starting back down at ground level for me right now to try to propel my way back up in what I want to aspire, which is ultimately getting the UFC title.
Awesome, man. Well, we'll definitely talk about that later. But I did want to ask you about your last fight. You snapped a three-fight losing skid with a flying knee. I believe it was back in the States. How good did it feel to snap that losing skid, man?
Yeah, I mean, traveling and losing, it's never fun, and I'm fighting elite guys too, guys that are, knocking on the door to get in the UFC as well. And then fighting at a championship level, and then you're losing these fights and like, not that you're losing them to guys that are just like dominating you, but just the way they happen, you're just like, man, what the hell? Like, these incidents are happening. What's going on? And then you're wondering if you still got it. And then I come back into the States, where I fight in Nevada and Laughlin. It's less than a 2 hour drive for me. I'm at home. I'm feeling good. Almost too good. I'm like, man, is this normal? Like I don't have no adversity right now. And then to go in there, get the fight. The fight gets going. It's kind of gun shy. You're kind of expecting this guy to be like up to par with the other guys that I was recently fighting, which he was. He took me down. We had some good scrambles, and then I drew him in and caught a flying knee, a highlighter that was definitely a highlight of my career, and it goes viral. It was definitely a magical night.
Mhm. Sometimes it's so hard to stay locked in, especially after like a few losses. I guess before your last fight, did you have any intention or did you have any feelings or were you contemplating retirement at all?
A little bit, yeah. You lose these close fights, and then you're fighting guys that are really tough, and that's why I'm super thankful by the guys I have around me. One in particular is Cub Swanson, like pulling me out of a dark place. Right, you're just like, man, like I'm done, bro. Like I don't know what's left to give, and he's like, hey, tell you what, just be around the guys, come over to Bloodline, help some guys, just coach for a year, just take a year off, let yourself heal back, let yourself get mentally refocused and reestablished. And then starting to see the success that the Bloodline guys were having, Dan Silva, Rafa Garcia, Dan Agueda, Chapelin, who just fought recently on the Dana
Richard
White Contender
Miranda?
Series. Yeah, Richie Miranda and Larion Douglas. You're just like, okay. And then I'm in the gym with them, grinding with them. And then Cub had his fight against in Tampa, and he had a phenomenal performance and an awesome knockout. I was like, okay, I'm back on. Like, let's do this.
Yeah, man, for sure. And I think Cubs like he's thinking about retirement as well, so like it's gonna be interesting to see how that pans out for him. I did want to talk about your Bellator career. 9-3 in your Bellator run, one of the greatest Bellator fighters ever. How do you look back on what you did out there for so many years inside the Bellator cage?
Yeah, looking back, I was very thankful I took that route, because it left me wanting more when that chapter in my life closed, because I was at a fork in the road where I was like, okay, it's either UFC or Bellator. And then I was trying to put things together and to perspective for the longevity of this. I was like, well, I want to end in the UFC. So if I could do this, like I'm gonna do this now at the Bellator scene. So I went to the Bellator scene, had really good success, hit a couple roadblocks, but those were in title fights. I never lost a fight that was not a title fight. So I was like, okay, like I'm losing to top prospects as our top guys in the world. And then so looking back, I had great success there. And then the RIZIN thing fell in my lap, and then I won the RIZIN title. And then I was like, okay, I've won a promotion. I've won a belt in every promotion I fought for. Now there's just one thing left to do, and that's go full force forward on this dream and this aspiration that I have.
What happened to Juan Archuleta when all of the PFL and Bellator acquisition thing was happening? Because a lot of fighters were kind of they didn't have any fights, but or they were having trouble getting fights. But where were you during this time? Because I think you fought in RIZIN in 2023, right?
Yeah, so we had the Bellator and the RIZIN collaboration, right? And then I was able to get on there. But the deal was that if we fought for RIZIN, that we would have a 3 fight contract with RIZIN and Bellator. So they had to honor the 3 fights that I was going to do with Bellator or with RIZIN. And then during that time, they had renegotiated everyone's contract, like because they knew they were selling, so they inflated everyone's purses, right? Some people they kept, like AJ McKee, Corey Anderson, some of the main guys. Then I get a call, and I was like, they're like, "Hey, you beat Asakura, you're going to be fighting Patchy Mix for the title." I was like, "Okay," and then I mean, things happen for a reason. I ended up losing to Asakura, and then they cut me. They're like, "Oh, well, you're cut." And I was like, "All right, cool. Well, you inflated my numbers anyway. Like, I knew you weren't going to pay me this amount of money. You know, they told me I was going to get paid $600,000 to fight. I was like, bro, if you pay me that, I would love to stay with PFL. But 100%, I know you're not going to pay us that. Like, and it showed, you know, and I made the right call on that. Like, you know, before they made the transition, I asked them not to. I was like, just please leave my purse the way it is. Don't inflate my purse because I know I'm not going to get a fight with the PFL. And they were like, no, no, they have money, you know, and they're going to pay you guys. And I was like, oh man, I don't know. And then, you know, and it went to show that I made the right call. So I just said, hey, I'm under contract with RIZIN. They're like, no, you're not. You're under contract with PFL. And so Scott Coker, thankfully, had put down that in the contract that if you can't keep me busy with RIZIN, or if you can't keep me busy with Bellator, I have the right to fight with RIZIN. And then I had made a huge scene in RIZIN as well, in the Japanese culture and a fan base I built there was undeniable.
Yeah, man. I loved your walkouts for Ryzen because you had the didn't you have like an Aztec warrior then you had a Jaguar warrior or something like that. But I love the way that you walked out over there. Also, shout out Scott Coker for getting you that deal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's the statement that I wanted to make is like because if you look at the past Pride shows and the Goki and like all the guys that just walked out before me, and like few legendary fights before mine, I wanted to make that type of aura, that type of a presence there. And you know, when I remember going to Japan and I waited until the day of weigh-ins because I didn't want to give it away yet to the Bellator guys like AJ and Patricio. I was
Mhm.
like, hey, what outfit did you guys bring to walk out in? They're like, what are you talking about? I was like, bro, you know this is like the biggest like advanced event that Japan puts on is like their New Year's card, right? They were like, oh, what the hell? And they were like, did you bring something? I was like, yeah, bro, I planned for this for like the whole month. I had a specific thing made. And so AJ went and got like bought his samurai outfit, and then
That one
uh,
was like $100,000 or something like that. The samurai outfit.
yeah, and it was unfortunate, man, because he went to a guy that was like he kind of got screwed in the deal on that, you know. Like I met that I went there to go see like the authenticity of like all the shoots that they were making. Of course, they do a good job, right? But there was no history behind it. Like they had made that, and then they just kind of like upcharged them. So that was kind of unfortunate. He should have done a little more research on that deal, you know. Um, and then Patricio walks out in the Roman outfit, you know. But mine was authentic, right? Like you see my performance and the things that came out, it had a lot more greater value, you know.
We have to talk about your next fight. Jose Johnson. I think he's 6 foot. Is this the tallest guy you've ever fought?
Yeah, definitely. I fought a guy that was 6'2" in Lithuania when I was in King of the Cage. I defended
Wow.
this is when I fought for one I fought Chris Tickle for the 160 title, and I had to defend that title in Lithuania. So Terry Treblecock was like, hey, we got this guy in Lithuania. You're going to fight 160. You're going to defend this title. I was like, all right, let's do it. So that was probably the biggest guy that I fought. And this guy, Jose Johnson, is going to be up there with that.
Hmm. I've seen him fight in Fury FC and obviously UFC before. I guess what do you make of him as an opponent? Very long and lanky. How do you prepare for a guy like that? And I guess what do you make of the matchup?
Yeah, his presence is obviously going to be very long. It's going to be working on getting inside, obviously through his punches, but he has some tricks down the middle with his knees and his up kicks that I'll have to be leery of, you know. Um, I, I don't know how fast he is. You don't know until like you could watch film, but when you're in the cage, it's just a different speed because it's fight speed, you know. We have guys that are, Danny Silva, that's 6 foot. We have Giga, 6 foot. Um, we have some guys that are very tall that that I've trained with for a long time. So the height won't hopefully matter too much in the fight, but I'm definitely there to try to solve that puzzle.
Hmm. You've fought with some of the best guys in the world, and you've obviously trained with the best guys in the world as well, because TJ Dillashaw, Cub Swanson. I mean, the list goes on. But has there been any conversations with the UFC since your last win? And I guess can you speak to me on that?
Yeah, I wanted to get on a win streak first because again, I was coming off 3 losses, you know. So even to entertain the idea, like everyone was like, "Oh, just get one win." It's like, I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that. You know, they're not gonna say like, "Oh, you got one win and then there you go, like here's a contract." You know, I have to prove myself, and I know that. Like I'm coming from a RIZIN, I'm coming from a Bellator, and so they're definitely not going to do any favors. And I'm older in age, right? Like they see the numbers and they're like, this doesn't really make sense for us, but this is why I had to take a couple steps back in order to prove to myself and to prove to the UFC, like, well, can we throw him in the mix right here? Does it make sense? Is this fan base enough to come in and make noise? And so that's what I'm trying to prove right now, that I do have a fan base. I do have people that want to watch me fight some of the higher level guys because I've been training with them my whole career, and guys that are, legends of the sports, and Cub Swanson, Brian Ortega, Yair Rodriguez, and the whole Alpha Male crew back in the day. Just I've trained with these guys. I know the value they bring, and I've been alongside with them, and I'm still healthy. And it's not like I've taken. There's not fights that you've seen that were like, oh man, Juan's gonna have to recover from that for a while. So I still have. I'm only 11 years into the sport, like, and that's still very young for that's a young age in the sport for someone my age. So I'm hoping they could take a step back and realize that, like they did with Patricio and MVP, and show that I bring the value there.
Yeah. Do you feel like the UFC might be changing the way that they work in terms of bringing in older veterans? Like, I'm not sure if you saw they signed Mandel Nalo, who's 36. I believe he's the oldest contract winner on Contender Series. Pitbull was 37 when they signed him. I guess does that give you hope for you and your career?
Yeah, and that starts with this fight. I'm very thankful the way that last fight played out because it's a contender for a knockout of the year. Every media guy that I've talked to, they have said, like, hey, we're putting you down for knockout of the year, and it's definitely gratifying to hear that because it's like, man, I've done some cool knockouts, especially at Madison Square Garden, and that didn't get put in for knockout of the year, but this one is like that's awesome. And I had to go back a couple steps in order to do that. So to hear that is gratifying, and it's letting the UFC know that I do still bring value there because it's one of the biggest knockouts this year that have gotten a lot of traction on MMA fighting and MMA Junkie, which has like I think now 1.7 million views on it and impressions. So yeah, it's still climbing.
You fought all over the world in Japan to the States, like everywhere. Uh, the UFC is obviously like a different machine. I guess what would it mean to you to step into the octagon and to feel what all of your teammates, all of your teammates and then all of your opponents and stuff like that have felt before? What would that mean to you, man?
It'll be iconic. Like honestly, I've been in the corner of some of the biggest fights in the world, and I just closed my eyes and just pictured myself in the ring. Like, man, if this was my moment, this is how I take it in. And if you see me in some of the corners, I would look around and I would just like bask in the a little bit of my teammates' glory, just to be like, man, this is the presence that they're bringing. Like, this is insane, man. And then the walkout, I would like be giving high fives, pretending I was the one walking out, right? Because it's like you put yourself in there, and that's why I love cornering my friends, because one day I knew that was going to be me, and it did. It happened in front of 65,000 people in Japan when I was fighting for the world title, and 40,000 people, and then I think the lowest crowd I had in Japan was 30,000 people, and it was
Wow.
crazy. Yeah, but the Saitama Arena, when I walked out with the Jaguar outfit, it was just like you hear the whole gasp of air being taken away from their mouth, because they were like, oh, like, dang, because no one knew I was going to do it. And then when they seen me, they were just like, what the heck is this? This is insane. So to have those moments, and then now to bring that to the UFC, that would be iconic for me.
Mhm. As you start to get more momentum, do you feel like you need a finish on September 20th?
Either a finish or one of the best performances I have ever had. I know when I fought Barzola, Enrique Barzola, that was probably one of the most free flowed performances that I had, because I hit him with like so many shots, and then like was came out so clean from dodging and weaving and ducking and then hitting them back. It was like a masterpiece. And so that's what I'm chasing. I'm chasing more of just a clear on masterpiece for this performance, just to be like, man, this guy is so still moving so well. He's so far ahead of the game. Like, we need this guy in here. So that's the performance I'm chasing. And then when the finish presents itself, I'm gonna find my kill shots, and I'm gonna try to go right through them and put them to sleep.
Awesome, Juan. Well, I think that's all the questions I have for you, man. I just want to thank you again for the time. One of the greatest Bellator fighters of all time. Did you want to say anything to the fans out there watching?
Yeah, MMA Island, thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate you guys having me on. And to the fans, I'm telling you, September 20th, there's no UFC going on that weekend. There's no big boxing fights. Tune in, because in XFC presented by BORROKA, I'll be defending my title. Please tune in and watch this fight and cheer for me. If you guys want to see me into the UFC and you want to see me make some noise in the top 15 guys right away, someone like a Dan Ige, someone like anyone in the top 10, like, I'm down to fight them. And if you want to see that too, come support, give some love, and give a shout out to the UFC and let them know.